So paper 1, the crime paper, is 1 hour 15 minutes. And it consists of 6 questions. They're not weighted all the same. But you will notice that 3 of these questions, question 5 or question 6, which is an option question 4 and question 2A, come to a grand total, when you include the SPAG marks for 5 and 6, to 40 marks. The entire paper is 52 marks, so it really makes sense to make sure that you're focusing on 5 and 6, if you do 5 or 6, question 4 and question 2A. So let's start with question 5 or question 6. Remember, it's an either or option, and one of them, historically, is slightly more difficult to do than the other. If you like, this is the bastard question. It's always going to ask you, how far do you agree? So there will be a statement, and then your job is to give 3 factors or reasons why the statement occurs. So, for example, the biggest change to punishment between 2 periods will be due to X. And your job will be to say that you agree and that you disagree and that potentially you agree or disagree. The key thing with this question is always to talk about the extent to which you agree. So say you partially or somewhat agree or disagree. It needs 3 paragraphs. They will give you 2 stimulus questions points. Question 4, the explain why, is somewhat slightly simpler because it just simply needs you to make again 3 points, and they will give you 2 stimulus points on a statement that they give you explaining why, not how, but why a certain thing happened to change or continue during a certain period. The other one that we need to focus on is question 2A, how useful, and this is our old friend the 2 sources. And the job here is always to talk about not only what's in the content, but also what is in the rubric, the provenance, in order to talk about the utility of these sources. Remember, this question, although it's worded how useful are these 2 sources, what they're actually asking you is in what way are these 2 sources useful. The 4 markers are remarkably simple. We have our old friend describe 2 features. We have 1 similarity or difference over 2 time periods, and question 2B, which is a follow-up question to 2A and is very difficult to do well. So leave that one always to the end. So in terms of the order of the questions, we should be starting with question 5 or question 6 for 16 marks plus the 4 marks of SPAG. Question 4, the explain why, hopping back through the paper to question 2A. And then from this point, you might as well do question 1, nice and straightforward, dash across to question 3 and end up on our old friend, question 2. You will also see that the first 3 questions are all on Whitechapel. They will only be on Whitechapel. They cannot be on anything other than Whitechapel. Whereas questions 3, 4, 5 and 6 have nothing to do with Whitechapel. Do not talk about Whitechapel. Whitechapel is irrelevant. Instead, you are going to be dealing with crime and punishment from the period 1000 right the way through to the present day. In terms of the timings, you'll see that I've just added in green how long roughly you should be spending on each of these questions. Ideally, no longer than the time marked, but if you're spending less time, that's brilliant. So for question 1, 4 marks, no more than 5 minutes. Question 2A, an 8 marker, 10 minutes tops. 2B, 5 minutes. Worst case scenario, jettison this question, save yourself 5 minutes if you need it. Question 3, again, another 4 marker, so only 5 minutes. Question 4, the 12 marker, give yourself 20 minutes. And question 5 or question 6, remember it's an option, that gives you 25 minutes to answer that question with 5 minutes spare. The last thing is, of course, planning. Now remember, you should be using that Doro technique to answer your 12 and 16 markers. Remember, name it, describe it, explain it. You want the name of your factor, the umbrella heading that you want. You want to describe it, at least 2 examples, and explain it. Link that answer right the way back through your work. So if you have gone for a factor with 2 juicy details, you want to explain why it answers the question in that explain it box.